All right, hello everyone, and welcome back. Huzzah. If you are new to the podcast, don't worry. You only have one episode to catch up on if you are a completist gamer like myself. Don't worry. Just stay with us till the end of the show and queue up the next episode. Today we are talking about the romance genre in a more broad sense today. However, things are about to get heated because we are discussing the place erotic and explicit scenes have in novels. Yes, mother, be proud of me because I am talking about sex. Out loud for anyone on the internet to listen. Welcome to Gently Read, the podcast where we, as an I, your host, Aurora Fenzl, talk about anything and everything surrounding the romance genre, including our benefactress, Jane Austen, or more contemporary titles like Bridgerton, or projects that are coming up in the Jane Austen Society of North America, or anything that touches on like cosplaying or costuming, or projects that inspire people that stem from this genre. So again, I hope you stay with us, and thank you for listening. I can't wait to get started. Today's episode is very special because I have guests in the podcast studio. Both are from the English and reading community at our own University of Wisconsin, River Falls. So my first guest is an executive member of the UWRF All Booked Club and social media coordinator, an avid romance fan, and is so passionate about what she reads. Having only been available to participate in the club last year, I still remember how strongly you spoke at our own book club discussions last year. And deep in my soul, I think I tried to embody your energy and boldness when working on this project. So thank you, Marissa Myska.
It's Myska, but that's okay.
Myska?
Everybody says that.
Sorry. For answering the call to this podcast. Can you tell me what you are studying and if it has anything to do with our podcast topic at all? And also question number 2, specifically in the romance genre, what is your top or favorite subgenre?
Yeah, so funny question. I'm actually an animal science major. I focus on animals and hopefully a pre-vet track, which has absolutely nothing to do with my love of reading, but I do love it. Specifically in the romance genre, I kind of just read whatever is available to my grubby little hands. So I read some poems, a lot of very book talk books, I would say, because they're super easy to get into. It doesn't require a lot of mind, which I appreciate that, because after a long day of school, the last thing I want to do is read a complex story. So, so my favorites, I would say, definitely are fantasy romance books and just anything with a hot man. So, yeah.
Yes, love this. I appreciate the energy. So my second guest is someone who is very near and dear to my heart, and I am indebted throughout this podcast project development. Unfortunately, as in many friend groups, many people don't see eye to eye on the merits of reading, well, anything. So thank you for the conversation we had on the St. Thomas More Newman Center couch. Shout out. Thank you for that conversation, because it really was the inspirational match to the kerosene for writing this episode. I am so grateful to have you here because this episode is your fault.
You're welcome.
I would only want to do this with you. Thank you, Gianna Mundt. Can you please tell me again, same questions, what are you studying, and has anything to do with this podcast at all, and if you have a specific genre that you like?
All right, so I am a secondary English education major, so this does have a lot to do with what we're talking about. I love books, I love literature, I love reading, and I feel sex is a very large part of literature, and so it's definitely something that should be discussed. and especially with young people whom I will plan to be teaching high school, and I feel like that may be a big conversation when I'm a teacher that I might have to be knowledgeable about. Oh, and my favorite subgenre of romance, I love historical romance. I just love, like, the knights, princesses. What can I say? I've always wanted to be a princess. And then I also love, like, fantasy romance. And like Marissa said, and I don't know, it's just good. Love it.
Yes.
I have one of those, like, really cheap $12 Amazon sparkly crowns. And I have my cosplay stuff from my photography class with me on campus. So let's do a photo shoot later.
I would love. My prom dress was very fairy. Let me tell you. I'll have to show you a picture sometime.
I'll have to see that later.
Yeah, we will look at it after the podcast. So let's get right into it. So number one, romances are almost a promise that there will be explicit scenes in books. So first question that will help our listeners understand your thoughts and approach. Do you think this genre should or should not have these scenes? Why do you think this?
I can go first. So I think that they should, but to an extent. Like, should you find it in, like, the children's section and be like, whoa, no. But if you're an adult, it's not, like, something you're hiding from. And I know a lot for me is that I like to live vicariously through them, or, like, in their world and kind of escape my world. And I don't know how to talk to men in real life. So it kind of just, like, helps me play my little fantasy, because it's definitely not realistic at all. But I think that expected, yes, at this time and age, especially with book talk, but I know I've picked up a couple of books that book talk recommended, and they didn't have it, and I was like, well, this was a waste of time. So, but, I mean, it's still a good plotline, so I guess they have that too.
I believe that honestly, you can have whatever you want in a book. The only issue I have is the violence and normalization of, like, abuse and stuff like that. I believe sex scenes, especially if it's erotica, you can have whatever you want in it. But if you are marketing it as romance, I do believe that the sex scenes should be tasteful and not so very explicit. And I just think this because, again, erotica is its own genre and romance is its own genre. And people are going to start assuming that romance is erotica, and then that opens a huge can of worms of, in a way, diluting the romance genre and making it less accessible to people who genuinely just want a beautiful romance story.
Mm-hmm. So a follow-up question, is there a degree of description in a book that constitutes it to, like, being explicit? Like, is it that the book details a sex act or implies the act, like describes, like, foreplay, or, you know, like the quote fade to black? Like, where is that line, do you think?
Oh my gosh, I hate fade to blacks. But I know some people are like, that's respectful, it's like their own thing, but also these characters are not real. And the whole point of the book is to learn about these people because they're not real and the author made them up. But constituting to what does it mean to be an explicit scene, I say just, like, details about a sex act, whether that be foreplay or, like, actual, like, sex. But I would say that there's a different like, sometimes it goes too far and I'm like, what am I reading? But if it's done right, I would say that it's done good and that it just makes sense plot wise. If they just throw it in there, I'm like, why did they do that?
Mm-hmm.
So.
I believe a sex scene constitutes as explicit once the act is being explained in graphic detail, especially the genitalia. For example, not to be, I'm getting graphic here, but once I start to see the words like member and core and
Schlong.
other thing, yup,
Yeah.
that's when it starts to get explicit. And yeah, I I kind of disagree with you, Marissa. I like the fade to black because I like the idea. I feel like it's more fun to make it up in your own head than to read it, because I feel like when the author writes it down, it, like, puts me off. I'm like, ew, what is that? And, like, I can, like, create it in a way that is enjoyable to myself.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Because, again, this is a form of entertainment, like, just to leave room for people to let their own imaginations go. Because half of reading is you have to imagine everything that you're reading. And I find that it's really interesting that we have to have, like, these discussions about, like, how much imagination are we allowed to give these readers?
Yeah, I hate especially when it's like, oh, they start to make out fade to black. It's like, oh, I got nothing. But I see, my problem is that I'm so inexperienced that I don't know, like, what would happen. I'm just like, okay, next page.
So can we say that these kinds of books are more so in, I know it'll sound weird coming out, but the educational sense of, like, kind of like figuring this whole, like, thing out. Like, I don't want to say, like, sex is a thing, but
Yeah, no, for sure. But at the same time, it's not realistic at all. Like, I know a lot of times in these books, like, the men are like, oh, I want to please a woman. When it's like, I feel like most men, I mean, not from personal experience, but I feel like most men, they want to pleasure, like, themselves first and take care of themselves first before their partner, which I have issues with that because it kind of leads to a false sense of reality. But also you have to remind yourself that it's a book, that it's not real, especially, like, if it's reading a fantasy book. It's like, oh, this isn't actually real. Don't take it to heart. But yeah, definitely the violence and, like, misogyny and stuff, I get worried about that. Like, there was a book I was reading, I can't remember, or, like, somebody was telling me about this book called, like, Adeline or something, like Mouse and Cat or whatever.
Goodness.
And I was hearing about that stuff in there, and I was like, what in the gosh darn dang done world is going on here? So there is an extent where I would go, but it's always up to, like kinks, right? Like, how far do you go and how far, like, are you interested in something?
yeah, so just some supporting stuff. Like, so bloggers, Book Talk, Bookstagram, they have lots to say. But thanks to algorithms and, like, platform rules against, like, open discourse of, you know, intercourse, you know, force a lot of creative language online. And these platforms where people are, like, marketing these books. So I really found it interesting, like, the differences in, like, language and, so differences of language and how we label things in the romance genre. So just a couple of examples, like, this includes, like, vague language acronyms that are not standardized, but are leaving either confused or misled book reviews from influencers who are, like, recommending books to potentially viewers who aren't aware of what that means. And, like, they just, you know, go on TikTok Shop, buy the book, and then they're like, what is this? So just, I'm going to list off a couple of the acronyms and just, like, what, like, your thoughts are on the use of these acronyms. So examples include, like, just using the word spice, clean, closed door, FMC, female main character, MMC, main male character, HEA, happily ever after, PNV, penis and vagina.
I've never heard that one.
TSTL, too stupid to live, female main character.
Bella.
Oh my gosh.
Purple prose, florid language like heaving stallion.
The Court of
Oh my
Thorns and
God.
Roses.
Excuse me.
The Mighty Wang, magic hoo-ha. I'm not going to expand on those.
Never heard some of these.
Me neither.
So can we just standardize this shit? Like, I want to know what I'm getting into when I'm considering making a purchasing decision, because at the end of the day, when you're on, like, TikTok and Instagram, a lot of these things, like, you are buying a physical book, you are buying a PDF or whatever Kindle uses these days for file formats, or you're buying, like, an audiobook, which is sometimes even more expensive. And, like, I just want, or, you know, you also pay in the time because I'm cheap and I use Libby and I have to wait, like, a month to get the audiobook that I want. So just the costs of making a decision to read a book in and of itself, I find it really interesting that we're using kind of these vague terminologies. Like, you guys said that you have never heard of some of these, and yet there are authors who, like, on their blogs, like, or on their personal, like, how do you describe it? They're
like the back of the book or like the inside cover.
or like these authors who are creating these ranking systems, and I just find it really interesting that it's not standardized. So my thoughts on this is that I wish that we, as a book-loving romance community, could get together and decide, you know what? Let's just standardize this. Like, you know, the rated M for mature on the back of video games.
I would so appreciate that for books.
I would agree.
Yeah. So
sometimes they do, though. Like sometimes it's like 17 up, and I'm like, well, that doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing to acknowledge is that authors are doing this as a way to market their books so that they do not get demonetized or their videos are not taken down, because TikTok and YouTube do have strict guidelines pertaining to explicit words like sex and descriptive words of genitalia and other examples. So they are forced to use these as a way to market their novels. Do I wish that there was, you know, easy ways like the M on the back of the books to state mature, to allow readers to know what they're getting into? Absolutely, definitely. I wish we had that.
It is relative to like who's reading it, though, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of these I mean, I've definitely heard of MMC. I'm very big on Bookstagram and Book Talk, so I know a lot of that. Never seen HEA. I guess I don't read those books halfway over afterwards. And then P&V, Penis and Vagina. Yeah, I haven't heard that one either. But I know a lot of times that I will like I think the whole like you said, like marketing, I think that's a huge thing, especially on Book Talk and Instagram. Like if you're using like a lot of words, it's like nah, scroll. Mm-hmm. So I think these like words are helpful to get in an easier audience and easier access. Do I wish they would like actually in the physical book writing? I wish they would just be open and honest, or have this link to go look at more, like a QR code on the back or something, where it's like tells you exactly what's in the book, or content warnings. I know sometimes they have that in places, but I do think it's funny sometimes when they use like silly words for like penis and vagina, like schlong and rod. I think those are funny, and it makes it reading kind of like if it's like a beautiful love scene, it's like okay, that's different. But if it's like a sex scene that I'm reading and it's just like a silly book, like the characters are funny, and if I'm reading it's like a silly romance novel, I think it's really funny when they add that, and it makes me laugh. It makes it not serious, which I think is like what sex is about. It's like it's not serious, unless you're, I don't know, I've never had it, but I would like to say that it's like it's all about having fun and being with your partner and kind of understanding like what they like and what you like, and I think it's just supposed to be fun. I think the stigma is that it's serious, and once you cross that line of doing it, you can never take it back. It's like it's all in the patriarchy, you know, like is Virginia like even a real thing? Like all that I feel like is put into the patriarchy and stigmatized because of men. So
yeah, unfortunately we don't have time to get more into that on this episode.
I could talk for hours about patriarchy.
Another thing that I do have to say about the acronyms is that they originate from fan fiction, especially the platform AO3. And I do feel that a lot of major romance authors that are coming into the industry at this moment used to be fan fiction authors, because they're able to write out these books at such a breakneck pace because they were fan fiction authors. I used to be a huge reader of AO3. I do not anymore because I do not like to read erotica anymore, but that used to be like my thing. And like all of these acronyms come from AO3 because you have an entire list of tags, I believe they're called, so that you know exactly what you're getting into. Like they describe everything like off-putting or sexual that may or may not happen within the story that you're reading. So that's where I believe that's where it comes from.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did not know about AO3. Is that like the full name?
You've never heard of AO3?
Wait, can you like expand on this?
So AO3 is a platform where anybody who wishes to write fan fiction about literally anything can. And for example, you can write like a lot of like Twilight fan fiction. There's a lot of like anime fan fictions and stuff like that. And you can do whatever you want with the characters. You can change their sexuality. You can, there's this whole thing with like Alpha Omega stuff. Don't even, I don't even want to get into that. That's so
Yeah,
weird,
again, we do not have time in this podcast episode.
Yeah, it's just, you can write whatever you want and read whatever you want. If you have an idea of something that you wanted to see within a movie or show or a book, you can find it. Anything.
Thank you, Archive of Our Own, which is AO3.
Thank you, because I'm one of those readers where I trust the publishers maybe a little bit too much because I just want to have that gate kept. You know, it's like I don't want to read, quote, amateur writers, because there has been instances of like reading a lot of like flash, like quickly published novels that are self-published online that I find that I'm like, I get into like probably like 3 chapters in it and I'm just like, this author sucks. Who let them publish this?
I've done that a couple of times where I'm like, this doesn't even make English sense.
It's all about the tropes. It's all about getting people to spend money on the books now, sorry to say. But I do believe erotica is diluting the reading industry because you lay out a list of tropes. Here's a list of tropes that are hot right now. Write about it as quickly as you can and get it out on the market so that we can make money.
So just another quick point before we wrap up this section. So young adult, like the YA in, publishing terms, technically is ages 12 to 18. I find that, like, at least on sometimes social media and on blogs and stuff, I find that this term gets mixed up with the correct term NA, which means new adult, at around the ages of 18 to 23. So I think that there is danger in not having a standardized form of putting a warning label on these books. I mean, this is my solution, and if the novel contains, like, explicit content, it should be given a label, much like movies and video games and cigarettes. I feel that like this is the best way to protect all parties and still allow for freedom of speech and publishing and letting people make the creative work that they want. But it's like I just think that we're consuming this media much like we consume like a box of cereal. I think we should have like a little blurb on the back that says this is what it contains.
Carbs. No. But I've gone to Target a couple of times and I've seen things in the kids section like Icebreaker and I was like, oh, no. Have you seen that TikTok on it? Oh, no. The captain from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's funny. That's how I feel. But yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, it's a cutesy cover, which I like the cutesy covers, but it's definitely misleading.
I hate them.
I like them. I think they're cute because I don't want people to know what I'm reading. They're like, oh, you're reading a cute little romance? I'm like, yeah. My mom's like, oh, yeah, I am, Mom.
I feel like, I don't know, they make them seem juvenile, like you said. And I don't like the cutesy covers because, honestly, I just think they're ugly, point blank, period. But, and they all look the same. It bothers me. Give us some uniqueness. Give me the beautiful leather covers like we did. Anyways,
sometimes I can't tell. Yeah, sometimes I can't tell authors apart because their covers look so similar. I'm like, oh, it's not that author.
Like, guys, get some branding out here. Come on, differentiate.
Exactly.
I don't want my bookshelves to look the same.
Again, it's money.
Ugh, I know.
That's what it
Use
is.
fan art.
No, really, though.
I love fan art.
Is so
Sometimes
good.
they're starting to include it inside the covers. They're starting to include them in there.
I read a lot of Ruby Dixon, and on her Instagram, she shares a lot of fan art, and I think the fan art that she shares is just so precious.
Is that the Ice Planet?
Yes.
What does she write?
You don't
She writes alien romance.
And their schlongs are special.
Yeah, I don't know.
Shifting gears.
I learn new things every day, and it hurts me.
This is a university you're learning.
This is true.
Oh, all the thousands of dollars we pay for our liberal arts education. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Aliens.
Hey, I'm spending this own money on these books. That says something. My own hard paid earned money.
As you should.
Thank you.
Okay. When reading in this genre, we come across quite a bit of like violence that is normalized. This is not a definitive list, but there is a trend of, quote, like alpha males and morally gray heroes. And let's just say billionaires, think 50 Shades of Grey, who do straight up illegal things around and to the female characters, like from a knight kidnapping a lady in historical fiction, bullies in high school, dark young adult romances, or I should say new adult romances, fully patched motorcycle club members buying illegal guns or running from the police, suspense genre with like special ops teams breaking international laws by entering foreign countries and almost starting a war, or just situations like involving like rape. It's not great. So the question that I have for you guys with this premise, all of these shady ethics, what do you think this is doing to readers, and what is this content doing to the perception of the genre?
Oh gosh.
So I believe that, so what I would call this is dark romance, is what they usually market it as. And I feel that this romanticizes and normalizes abuse, rape, kidnapping, torture, etc. They're telling young girls, oh, this man is hot and rich. That means he can do whatever the hell he wants with you. Girly pop. You know, like, oh, it annoys me so much. Again, we were talking about Haunting Adeline. He literally...
Doesn't he like choke her?
Yeah, he shoves a gun up her vagina, and that's like their first sex
Like,
scene,
fucks her with it.
and she like likes it. And like, no, he's a stalker. He murders people. Did he like murder her boyfriend?
I didn't actually read the book.
And you're having it. Me neither. I watched lots of YouTube videos though, because
My cousin did.
friend read it, and I went and I read like a tiny bit of it, and I went, no, but. It just bothers me because you see on TikTok there's all these young girls reading this, and then they're going, oh, so this is what's supposed to be hot. No, what is supposed to be hot is a confident, strong, gentle man who looks, or woman, yes, who looks at you and goes, I love you, you're beautiful, you can feel safe with me. Not this. Not this.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I will say that sometimes it's taken too far. Definitely, like the gun thing, like a given. Like you never know what's gonna happen. Like, oh my gosh. But I think to an extent, like I said, like Kings, like some people like the blood kink or something like that. I'm not into that, but some people are. So, but also goes back to the thing like AO3. Like if someone wants it, they'll write it. It'll be written. So, but I would agree that it's giving young girls and just and anybody in general, like even I mean, I've never seen a book where the women are like that, thankfully, but because women wouldn't do that, but we can't say that. But yeah, the men, I would say they're acting in a way that I wouldn't want as a partner, but reading about it is different for me. It's like I would never get in that relationship, but I can see how that's misleading to especially a younger audience that are so easy to sway, which I think is unfortunately that's what a lot of books are targeting nowadays, is the younger audience who are like, oh, a book about this and blah, blah. Ooh, that sounds interesting. I am that person actually, but I would agree that it's to an extent it's like crazy, it's stupid, but I mean if they made it, so somebody's buying it, somebody's liking it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to say that, you know that, like, saying, like, you are what you consume?
Excuse me?
I feel like, I feel like this kind of pertains to it. Like, for example, like, when I was super into the, like, erotica, I, like, thought that I wanted, like, a bad boy. You know, I want somebody who's, like, mean and, like,
tatted.
Is, like, you know... Yeah, and it's like, now that because it did change my perception of who I was attracted to, it did change my perception of romance. And now that I don't read it anymore because I've realized that it just wasn't healthy for me personally. Again, you can read whatever you want, you can write whatever you want, but personally, after I stopped reading erotica, I realized that that is not the type of man I want. Like, I want a man who is kind and good and, like, genuinely loves me and doesn't lust for me. Because there is a difference between lust and love. There can be lust and love, but there are two separate things. There's a difference between a man lusting for you and a man loving you, and I want a man to love me. So
That it's a boring book, though.
I know.
It's for entertainment purposes.
I know, but again, you as much as you may not think this, what you do read, what you do choose as entertainment affects your perception of the world around you. And again, you can do whatever you want. It's just, sometimes it's okay to think about that.
Like, I read a lot of, like, those special ops books. Like, I love we're going to go into, like, Argentina, and we're going to go rescue this girl.
Go save her.
That whole thing. Like, I have this...
love those.
I have the fantasy of, like, ooh, I want, like, the German Shepherd of a man. But no, my life is really more so, like, golden retriever.
Yeah, I want a golden retriever boyfriend for sure.
Yeah, real life, I think we all deserve a golden retriever.
Yeah.
And not to be a hypocrite, I say these things, but do I still enjoy to read some erotica every once in a while? Do I still enjoy the idea of a bad boy? Yes.
Absolutely.
But in my personal life now, I understand that I need to separate the two things, like fantasy and reality. They need to be separate things. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, and just playing off of this, going on to, like, the reality, there's this quote there from Maya Rodale's book. I'll link it down in the show notes. But it is, the quote is, "There is no greater threat to women than men." And I find this funny. Again, we're laughing. So it's funny because it's true. It's not safe out there for women because men. We tell women to carry mace and rape whistles and to curtail their movements so as to avoid dangerous situations.
Watch what they're wearing. I hate when they're like, well, what were they wearing?
Agreed.
Like, if women go on a date, many text a friend when they're home safely and have, like, a buddy system for dating. So Maya Rodale says, but in romance novel, readers can explore a variety of sexual desires and practices in the safety and privacy of their own homes with no consequences and very little risk. Quote, "The reader can live vicariously through the heroine and fall in love with the hero, but without any of the consequences." And this is from Marianne Fisher, who's a PhD in an article on Psychology Today.
100% would agree. That's exactly why I read. But yeah, everybody's different though. So.
Yeah. The idea of, like, I do agree that, like, the term, like, there's no greater threat to women than men, that term kind of bothers me because there are so many good men in the world, and I don't like how it generalizes, like, men as, like, all bad. I know that's not the intention because there are many men in the world who are horrible. I mean, men commit the most murders, men commit the most rapes, and all this stuff like that. But I need to put out there there are many good men in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Not all negativity.
So another thought, what does this say about women reading romances with scenes of, this forced seduction? Or what about the rise of the BDSM romance and with its often, male dominant and female submissive scenarios? Do women really want to, be raped and dominated? I think we've determined through our discussion that it's like, no, this is fantasy and people are going to do whatever kinks they want. So not necessarily, but that's not to discount readers who, have these fantasies. Mm-hmm. So this quote, "The thing about the rape fantasy is that you are consenting from the beginning. You are beginning to, read this. The fear and other aspects of the situation are, up to you. There is an undercurrent of empowerment in deciding to participate willingly in that scenario. If that's what floats your boat, that's fine." And end quote. So recently the big trend has been this BDSM fantasy, and this quote that I'm referencing, this book is a couple years older, like 2020. So this BDSM fantasy that's exemplified in the 50 Shades of Grey books and the explosion of similarly themed erotica in its wake. However, respectively or accurately it may or may not be depicted. So I guess, what do you just think about this fantasy?
Of like BDSM specifically, or just like
Or you
being
could,
submissive?
or
Aspect of it.
either, like, we can take this even broader. So in a sense of how books are allowing people to have these fantasies but also be safe.
I appreciate that personally, just because like I'm an innocent baby child. I don't do anything. I'm scared to leave my house. But I think of it as a way as exploring what you're into. Like if you're reading something, you're like, ew, obviously you're not into that. That's okay. Like I was reading. Oh my gosh, this book was so weird. It's called The Ritual. I don't know who the author is, but Kindle Unlimited has gotten me into some sticky situations with some weird books. Because you can put like anything in it. I'm like, this is a published book. But it was like something about like a college like fraternity was taking these like women. Like they got a picture graph of this woman. Each one gets assigned a woman, and they had to take them and like, you know, fuck them right in the middle of everybody else. And it's like, what is going on? Look it up, The Ritual. It's really weird.
What?
And it's a series too.
I'll stay away.
I was like, that's like the first thing like dark romance that I've ever read. Like I've read like one or two BDSMs, and it's like, oh, it's just like a little bit. It's like not the main plot. I did read one BDSM though where the woman was the dominant, and I was like, this is so great. I love a turn of events. But yeah, The Ritual, that one freaked me out. There's always that book that you're gonna meet, and it's like that crosses the line, so you know your limits. But I like that it explores things that you can't, like, that maybe you shouldn't do in real life, or you're too afraid to, or it's maybe not acceptable in your culture or society. So I think that it's nice to explore things, but like I said, to an extent, like, obviously separate it from reality.
Yeah, what you talked about limits change. Again, when I was really into erotica, I went, okay, I'm never going to read that. That's my limit. But then I read everything that I was comfortable with, and then I got bored. So then you have to up the anthem until you get into some stuff that, you know, a year ago you would have gone, ew, no, horrible. And now you're reading it because everything else is boring. So you do have to be careful about that. And moving on to a different part of this discussion is that, like, the BDSM thing, I believe, is so popular because the idea of not having to make a decision, the idea of somebody else being dominant in the situation, I feel is very tantalizing to a lot of people. That's just my guess as to why it is so
women
popular.
Are always, like being told what to do, and it's like, well, they're being told what to do in bed now.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. But some people might like it because it's like they don't have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's unfortunate how sometimes it is portrayed, because you see these powerful women be like, okay, take me. It's like, okay.
Actually, you guys hit the nail right on the head. So in Rodale's book, there's another section that talks about how women really, we do a lot unfortunately in our general society. Women take on a lot of the childcare roles. They take on a lot of the domestic labor. They are also working, and they, do a lot of emotional labor, like managing, like, all the family members. They're the kind of the in-house therapist of a sort. And unfortunately, like, women are tired. I came into this recording session like, I'm a little sleepy. It's raining outside.
I just came back from a nap.
Look, see, we're women. We're very tired. And it's a gift, I believe, for women to just sit back and let someone else take care of you, because we are constantly, in our culture, taking care of everyone else and everything.
Drink some tea, maybe.
Meditate. I actually read a study that women are, like, genetically just, I don't know if it's genetically or, like, something about hormones, that we're just more tired than men, just, like, how our bodies are made. And it's like the work week was made for men.
Yes.
Yep.
And there's no breaks. Like, every lunchtime, I'm like, I could go for a nap right now.
Okay, we were actually talking with some friends last night at a bonfire just about this because
Exactly
women,
about this.
I will have to go ask our friend for the sources of this for this study, but men, their bodies hormonally are on a cycle of 24 hours. Women, our bodies cycle at around 27 to 28 days.
We got all those phases, man. Menstrual, follicular, luteal. What's the other one? Ovulation?
Yes.
Ovulatory?
Yeah.
And they got 24 hours, and they wonder why we're so crazy.
Like,
And they wonder why we're so tired all the time.
like I need like a
She's
week
out.
to think about this. Like, come talk to me about this like next week when I'm in my summer.
Oh my goodness. And another thing was that we talking about sleep, is that men they're supposed to get, 6 to 8 hours, and women are actually supposed to get 7 to 9. So we actually need more sleep than them. And again, like you said, the work week is centered around the men's internal clock. So
Patriarchy, man. Patriarchy.
So bringing it back, this is why women fantasize about being taken care of.
Yes. See, this is all relevant, I swear.
I'd be very susceptible to a cult.
Same. They're like, we'll take care of you. I'm like, okay.
Or maybe just a nice man. I'd be okay with
No.
that too.
Looking to the future, how do you think the genre is going to impact women? Or more specifically, how do you want the genre to impact other women or culture in general? So this is kind of the time to say, it's like, what are your hopes for this genre? What do you want it to do for society?
I just want women to feel powerful in their bodies and not have to worry about a man. Like, I guess being afraid or embarrassed of how they're pleased or how they're happy. I know sometimes I'm reading books and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed if someone found out I'm reading this. Why? Why is it so stigmatized that women can't be sexual but men can be? So I think that future in the genre, I'm hoping women become more empowered by these books, even if it is a little degrading sometimes. But I just hope that they become more accepted to talk about these subjects, like explicit sex scenes, things that are going on. Just finding out what you like. I think that's so empowering for women, especially.
How this will impact women in the future, I do worry that erotica, smut, will create false and unachievable romantic desires that you're not going to be able to find in your average man. But I must also say that I do enjoy how the romance genre tells women that they should have standards. Like, some of them actually are like, oh, he should treat you well. Oh, he should be nice. Like, he should hold the door open for you. Man, you should hold the door open for your woman, just saying.
Or unless you're a very strong woman and you don't like that. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to open my own door.
Well, true.
Somebody has done that to me before. And I was opening this door for this older woman. She's like, I can do it. I was like, okay, I'm just trying to be nice. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, one time I opened the door for this old man at a Quick Trip, and he got, mad at me. And I went, dude, your pride is way too up there.
Men's
calm
pride,
down.
it's like, bring it down a notch.
Yeah.
But no, I completely agree with you about, setting standards. It's so important, I think, for women to set standards, which not unrealistic standards, which I am at in my point of life.
Aren't we all? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, nobody's perfect, unfortunately. That would make my whole life a lot easier, though.
Sad.
So some statistics. 51% of this also comes from Maya Rodale's book, and I believe some of these statistics come from the New York Times, and also the Dangerous Books for Girls study. So the book that this was written for, they did a study of romance readers. So 51% of readers felt they should keep their romance reading a secret. 67% of romance novels don't get the respect they deserve. So why do you think this is?
What do you mean by, respect? Like, they're not considered, an actual novel? Or they're, that's stupid, it's romance? Like, what do you mean by respect?
I think in this case, I was preparing for this project and I wanted to, go into the romance genre, I reached out to a few English professors and I didn't get an answer back. I had to go to the book club to network.
That's me.
Yeah, thank you.
She came in and I was like, absolutely. I will talk about romance books anytime you want.
Yeah, so UWRF English professors and department, step it up.
I will say that Greta Gard, Professor Gard, she is amazing. She teaches, right now I'm taking an LGBTQ literature class. It's super interesting. But the books that we're reading, I'm like shocked that the university had it in their textbook services. Like, obviously the class is about queer romances. Excuse me, and it's called Written on the Body. It's about the main character. The narrator is genderless. They never say what their gender is. They never use pronouns or anything. That you can't even tell based off what their actions or their what they're wearing. But they fall in love with a married woman. And the way that they talk about this woman is just, it's so intimate. Like not even like sexualized. Like it's just so intimate. And I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. But at the same time, it's like, why should I be so surprised that it's so beautifully written and I've never read this before? Because it is an LGBTQ literature book, and I know that a lot of libraries and stuff, they're like being banned. It's like, why? It's just love. Love is love. But there's also some other books. I think it was, we read a lot, but there's Maurice, there's James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room. Like a lot of the books for the LGBTQ literature class, they're going out of the way to eroticize because gay eroticism is such a different subject, and I'm glad that the class is talking about that because it's not like it's a whole different like genre. It's included in erotica as well. So I was surprised that the UWRF allowed that in their curriculum. But Professor Gard, shout out, she is awesome, and she's like, okay, so what do you think about the sex scenes? Like, what do you think about this? Like, I'm like, thank you for finally bringing it up. I'm always worried that it's, like, not okay to talk about.
Yeah, but I think in general culture, however, people just brush off the side that when you read a book, like, reading books, it takes up time. It takes skill. Like, you are literally looking at, I don't know what's the meme where it's like you're looking at like the corpses of dead trees with ink on them, and you're like hallucinating like a story from reading it.
I love hallucinating.
What meme are you talking about?
We must be on completely different sides of the algorithm.
I know what you're talking about.
Instagram or like TikTok?
Instagram, I think.
Because my TikTok is weird.
But anyway, so it's just like it takes a lot of like effort and imagination, and again, skill. Reading is a skill.
I never thought about it that way. It makes me feel proud of myself though.
Yeah, like you imagine like people who set like goals. Oh, I'm gonna read 5 books this year. I'm gonna read 10 books this year.
Right.
I'm gonna read 3 new books in a new genre. I would say it should be celebrated, even if we are just, reading these kind of like fun, puff books. It's still reading. And I think we, as a culture, should celebrate this.
And again, well, not again, we haven't said this, but romance novels can be some of the greatest pieces of literature ever created. I'm going to go to the classics because, darling, I love the classics.
Pride and Prejudice, is that romance?
Yeah.
Yes, Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, like Wuthering Heights, Gone with the Wind, like all those ones those are romance novels. And guess what? People are talking about them so much because they're so good. And I must say, there's not a lot of sex scenes in there, so maybe that's saying something, but...
I just think it's because it's old.
That too.
That's why they're talking about
that too.
It's implied.
I do like to... I cannot wait to be like 80 years old and to see what books from like my time have become classical literature.
I'm waiting for A Court of Thorns and Roses to be like the godsend. Like, this is our Twilight. This is Gen Z's Twilight as ACOTAR.
Oh.
Any other question?
What? The secret one?
I said any other questions?
Oh,
I'm just collecting myself because I want to see if we want to either end the conversation or
I can do some plugs. Join All Booked Book Club, please.
We will get to that.
I'm joining it next year.
Thank gosh, I'm the vice president.
So exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was running unanimously, so. I mean, was it? I was running against nobody, so I won unanimously.
Okay.
I love winning.
I think
Me
I'll.
too.
I think we can
winning.
just do a wrap on this podcast, and I will.
Did you get everything you need? Because I can always add more. I felt like I talked a lot like off topic, so I'm sorry about that.
No, this is what podcasts are made for.
And this supposed to be entertaining, right? Like if you just talk to like blah 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 statistics.
We're
Yeah.
just girlies.
I hope
Just a
all of
girl.
you listeners are just doing your girly thing, washing your dishes.
Yeah, my favorite thing to do is listen to the Brittany Broski podcast. Shout out, but just like the community of just like listening to women and just hanging out.
We talked covering a lot of ground in a lot of different areas, but I think that we had a really good conversation, so thank you. We covered industry jargon and standards of talking about explicit scenes. In many subgenres, we find that there are very, gray ethics at play, and as a genre written by women and consumed by women, I feel that it is important that in this genre, we think that we can say that we all have, the best interests of readers at heart. So it takes a lot of courage to, speak this truth. And I want to thank you guys for being as passionate and as honest as I am in this conversation. So
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
all right. So do you guys have anything that you either want to plug, or do you guys have any work that you want to promote?
I'm gonna go first. So I am the vice president of All Booked Book Club, which is a book club on campus. We just started it my freshman year, so it's quite new, but we have a lot of people. It's super exciting. Just to show like that love of reading is still there. Thank you, because I worry that it's like dying out because of all the social media. But so right now we are just having our last meeting of this school year next Monday. Obviously, when this comes out, probably will happen already. But next semester we have picked some books that are super exciting. We usually do a lot of different genres. We have mystery. We have some sad books. We got some autobiographies. Do we have any romance? I don't think we have any romance, unfortunately, this time around. But
Is it Where the Crawdads Sing a Romance?
I don't consider that a romance. I read it.
I've never read it. So.
It's really good though, but it's mostly about the story of murder.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of other books. But yeah, so that's my plug. And also, if you're follow me on Goodreads, it's Marissa Myska.
All will be linked in the show notes.
Thank you.
I'll put in a plug too. Please go to the Writing Center if you need help with an essay, because we are available for you. We are here for the students. It is in KFA on the second floor. Please come, because you can come in for any part of the writing process. You can come in for brainstorming, just talking about your topic. If you'd like things to be clarified, editing, everything, please come in. We would love to see you.
I love the Writing Center. I go there a lot.
As you should. I'll be working there next year.
Marguerite is the president of All Book Club.
I know. She's so awesome.
I love her. Shout out Marge.
All right, thank you guys for listening. Subscribe and follow more of my creative work at Aurora Fenzl on YouTube. If I get more views and engagement on this YouTube platform, I will open up other social media channels. So go, guys, like, comment, subscribe, but please make the comments nice.
Please don't say something mean about me. I can't take it.
I'm sensitive.
I'm just a girl.
Anything else you want to just say into the microphone?
Yes, follow Aurora. Always. I don't even know her account anymore. But follow her. She slays. And her costume last year was slayed.
Thank you.
I agree. Follow Aurora. She's awesome.
Yes.
I love her.
Thank you.